The leaders of China, Russia, and India are meeting together as China hosts a major Eurasian Security Summit. More than 20 leaders are expected at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's meetings. China's leader, Xi Jinping, is using the summit to present China as a stable alternative to the U.S.-led world order. And this is happening as President Trump's tariffs upend trade negotiations and countries' alliances. One of the high-profile attendees in is India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's his first visit to China in 7 years. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin, also there, is expected to stay for 4 days. He'll be there on Wednesday when China caps off the high-level meetings with an elaborate military parade, and it's intended to show off the country's military might. Joining me now, CNN Global Affairs analyst Kimberly Dozier. Kimberly, good morning to you. Let's start with President Xi's intentions here. What's his goal for the summit?
Well, he is taking advantage of the tariff disarray to present China as the alternative and showing that he can master all of these forces together in a Eurasian economic, political, and military bloc of sorts that rivals anything that the West and the U.S. used to present in terms of, the organizations and the countries that you want to do business with because you can count on them. What Xi is sending a message to the world about is saying, we are the stable country, as you mentioned in your intro, whereas you never know what's going to come out of Washington next.
Yeah, we're showing the video now of this bilateral meeting here between China and India, and Narendra Modi on the screen now. Talk about his involvement and his, growing alliance with China, considering just days ago the announcement of those 50% tariffs on Indian imports into the U.S.
Yeah, India and China have been at odds for years over a border dispute and a clash several years ago that was deadly and killed several Indian forces. But the more Washington beats up on Delhi, the more Modi has reached out to China and also been embraced by Xi. The latest tariffs imposed on India are an extra 25%, totaling 50%. And that extra 25% is a complaint by the U.S. that India is buying crude oil from Russia. Now, this is hypocritical in a number of different ways. The U.S. isn't levying similar tariffs against China, which buys even more oil from Russia. And a large portion of the oil that India imports from Russia, it refines and then sells on to the European Union, which is supporting Ukraine. So why not beat up the European Union economically over purchasing this Russian oil? That's not happening. And so from the Indian point of view, this is manifestly unfair and another reason to take a look at who they do business with. And China's looking like the more stable partner.
Yeah. Vladimir Putin also in China for this summit. He'll also stay for the military parade midweek. The last time I think many people saw a world leader roll out a red carpet for Vladimir Putin, it was President Trump a little more than 2 weeks ago in Alaska. And that was to try to get to some peace talks, to some ceasefire. At least that's what he walked in trying to get. Where does that appear to go now? Because the latest reporting is that the president is frustrated. He's a week into the 2 weeks that he said he'd know whether he could really get some progress out of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, the Alaska summit graced Putin with a photo opportunity, but he's made absolutely no sacrifices so far on the battlefield. Only this week, he staged one of the largest attacks yet on the capital, Kyiv, killing more than 20 people, most of them civilians. And yet what you saw was Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, in comments about those attacks, saying that Trump wasn't surprised because Ukraine had just staged a massive attack on Russian energy infrastructure. And when you look at the comparison of those two, energy infrastructure versus civilian apartment buildings, which were the primary target hit in Kyiv, it just shows you, at least it shows Ukrainians and Europeans watching this, that the White House doesn't seem to understand the difference between Russian aggression against Ukraine and how they've targeted civilians on a regular basis, and Ukraine being the underdog, trying to target the energy infrastructure just as a way to survive and cripple the Russian war machine. So, where the peace talks are, they're increasingly frustrated on the ground in Ukraine because it looks like Trump isn't dealing fairly. He isn't putting the pressure on Moscow to make Moscow actually change its behavior. And everyone thinks that only Washington has the power to do that.
Yeah. One other leader that we rarely talk about in this kind of multilateral context is Kim Jong-un, who's been confirmed that he will attend this event midweek, this parade at Tiananmen Square to mark the end of World War II. The trio of Xi, Putin, and Kim together, give us the significance of seeing these three leaders together on, I believe it's Wednesday.
Yes, we really are seeing the emergence of this new military bloc because China has provided Russia with at least logistical help. Ukraine says they provided lethal aid, but we know for sure that they provided enough supplies that have helped Russia stay in the fight, whereas North Korea has provided lethal aid, including ballistic missiles and troops on the ground to help keep Russia attacking Ukraine. So it is an emerging bloc that is dangerous. And as Washington says, Trump says that he wants to meet with Kim Jong-un, but what does he have to offer when Kim Jong-un is being embraced by two world powers that are not asking him to denuclearize and instead taking advantage of the way he's weaponized over the past decades?
Kim's first visit to China since 2019. Rare to see him leave his country. Kimberly Dozier, thank you so much.